Yorker, Tonya Bolden, is an award-winning author of more than 20 books for young people and adults. A talented researcher and gifted storyteller, she is appreciated as one who turns the past into stories that move, challenge, and inspire. Her books on African American heroes and the African American experience have received national accolades. Ms. Bolden's latest book, Finding Families, is a historical coming-of-age story set in Charleston, West Virginia. Finding Family made it into Kirkus' list of best children's books of 2010, and Ms. Bolden came to the headquarters library on February 7th to talk about the creative journey of writing this book.
So begins my novel, Finding Family, the story of a girl in search of her voice, her identity, herself. Her story grew out of my collection of antique photographs. Then I said, okay, she's from a family of means. Not saying that a person who was poor couldn't borrow clothing, but generally the people, when you look at these photos, you can kind of tell from people say, only people of means had the extra cash to spend on a photograph. Not always, but generally. And I just looked at her and said, yeah, she looks like she's had some really good food, healthy food, and has a warm place to live. And in part because, too, I think where I was, although I will always continue in fiction and nonfiction to write about the have-nots, sometimes, I wanted to write about haves. I wanted to write about the black middle class. I think when we look back in time, the black middle class is often very ignored. Even though they were small, we'll know the history makers, so we'll know Booker T, we'll know Carter G. Woodson and those people, but we forget who did those people affiliate with. There was always this small black middle class, these striving people. So I said, okay, Delana, she's middle class, Charleston, West Virginia, 1904, and I didn't start with plot. I still went to the photographs. And the first line that came to me was, when Aunt Tilly said I had a spacious mind, I started to cry. I thought it was a way of calling me fool, dumb, or something else bad. That's the first voice I had of Delana. And I said, okay, she's weak, she's meek. So I went in search of Aunt Tilly. And all of these details, as I look at the photos and I'm llooking at them, I'm deciding, this is your character. That's why the book has a disclaimer to say, if this is your grandmother, this is all fictional, and I mean no offense. But then, Oh, when I dated the photograph, because it's probably like 1870, 1880, I realized that can't be her aunt, that's got to be her great aunt. So then the question comes, where's her parents? So this is how I'm finding my story, by saying, okay, Aunt Tilly's raising her, great aunt's raising her, and grandpa, she's being raised by a great aunt and a grandpa, and I'm like, where are her parents? And I have no idea. And I still don't have a story, right? I still don't really know what's going on. I think what I was concerned about was my people come from the Carolinas. I really don't know anything about West Virginia. And I didn't want to do a kind of mountain Appalachian, hokey, Hatfield McCoy. And I often find, especially with Southern language, that I always think sometimes it's not the dialect, and it's the way people phrase things that's different. So I would say things like fixin' to. And it would just try to create a language that would be believable. Because I don't really know how anyone spoke in 1904 in West Virginia or anywhere else. But I don't know, it just comes from, I think I do honestly kind of have an ear for language and what's believable. My editor said, she said, Grandpa always drops I, he never used I. And I didn't realize when I was creating his language, that I was creating certain ways that he spoke and words that he didn't use. And so she said, can we put an I in every once in a while, like I feel that, but it's those things like you say, when speech, it's like my speech, you drop the that in certain places, and you mess up subject-verb agreement, because sometimes when we speak, we can't get it out right. It's that thing that Toni Morrison said, we only have 26 letters of the alphabet. I don't have color, I don't have music, I have to use language to make music, to make color. And to me, that is what writing is painting with words. There's a spiritual dimension to it. You hear writers say the character spoke to them. Well, that really does happen. Or a character saying, I don't want to do that. Or, those things really do happen. And I don't think it's so much magic or anything. I think it's that whatever we are creating is based on something deep. And sometimes, like, I became aware when Grandpa was being my father and my But there's certain other things, like Amber Teen's character, I later realized, oh, that's cousin so-and-so. But not until later. So I believe what I was putting into certain characters may be things that I observed when I was 6 or 5. I mean, so much is in our brains and in our hearts. We've seen so much and experienced so much and tasted and stuff that I think all of your life goes into writing. So it's not like it comes from outer space, but it comes from within us and places that we don't even know. Things that we remember, we don't even know we remember. If I wasn't outside, if I was on punishment or something, all I did was write stories and poetry and just writing. And I look back at some of it I lost, some of it I had, and I look back at some of it and it's like, oh my God, it's god awful. But it was my way. It's just all my sister draws. It's always been my way. So I would say one thing is to preserve the work. Let the person know that this is special. So have special cases and special places that we keep this. Honor it so that she knows its value. Because I think I got one point, must have been a teen, and I don't know what I was going through, but I threw away a lot of stuff that I really wanted. Encourage different kinds of reading, and this is my thing. Encourage the study of foreign languages. Because I think, as a writer too, I think my study of Russian and knowledge of Latin and French and all these things, it's like you have the whole world available to you, all these rhythms. And then I grew up, someone once said, because I grew up in Spanish Harlem, so I have Puerto Rican, and Trinidadian would be at night, steel drum, and so I would just say, yeah, for writers, if you just have the whole world, because that's what you draw from. Everybody's rhythm can be yours. The dragonflies were still doing a dance with me keeping top eye open should they swarm nearer to the house. The screen door shut. Grandpa had gone inside to the sitting room, I guess, to play checkers with himself. Until he didn't seem to notice Grandpa had left. Other children, she mumbled, face all frantic and scratching her head. Lord have mercy, names on the run. After a long silence, until he asked, pick what you'll stitch next? Like needlework had been a course of conversation all along. No, I knew she'd pick no matter what I thought. Pink primrose be nice. Yes'm. Then I glanced up at the hydrangea. I saw dragonflies hover up, then dart away.
This program has been brought to you by the Friends of the Alachua County Library. For more information about Tonya Bolden, please visit TonyaBoldenBooks.com. To see a complete list of Ms. Bolden's books available at the library, visit the eBranch at www.aclib.us. Alachua County Library District, thinking outside the book.